So it's the 13th of January 2013 and it's a nice mild day today. All the snow that we got around Christmas has now melted. We had some rain a few days ago and all the snow we had is all gone except for a few little patches. Today I decided to take advantage of the nice warm day to come out here to give you a little tour and overview of my new bike. So a few days ago I posted a video of my journey to Toronto to buy this bike and then to bring it back here to Whitby. And this video is just kind of be a little overview showing kind of what caught my eye about it, just kind of the features that it has and kind of what my plan is for it for the future. So the model it's a Rally, and Rally has different divisions. This is the Rally Canada division, and the model is Sport, just called Sport. That's all it says on it. Now the only other thing it says on the frame is oversized mountain bike tubing. So my plan for this bike is I'm going to use it as a commuting bike. So this bike over here, this is what I call my green machine, and I've had this bike kind of for about 2.5 years now, and it's been my primary bike just for getting around town, for getting to work, just for running errands. Having the milk crate on the back makes it so handy for like getting groceries and stuff. So I'm kind of hoping to do something similar with this one, and I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to have sort of a backup. When you're using a bike, as your primary mode of transportation, and like for example, you're using it to get to work, if something breaks on it one day, you always got to have, or it's always a good idea to have a backup bike that you can take instead, because to repair whatever breaks on it, it may take a few days to get the parts, or just for you to have enough time, to put the time in to fix whatever you got to fix. So when it comes to choosing a commuting bike, there's really only two factors that I care about. The first one is the price. I prefer to have an inexpensive bike. Not necessarily just that I have to be able to get a good deal on it, but the bike itself actually should be like of a lower quality. The reason is because with my commuting bikes, I'm going to be leaving them outside a lot, leaving them locked up. If you have a high quality bike, something that someone's going to catch their eye and they're going to want to take it, then you're going to lose that bike. Someone's going to steal it. If you have a low quality bike like this one here, no one's going to really want to steal this bike unless they want to actually use it to get somewhere. That would be the only reason I could ever see someone wanting to steal my old green commuting bike. Because if someone tried to resell this bike, there's no way they would even get as much as $100 for this bike, and it just really wouldn't be worth their time and committing that crime to steal this bike. And the other thing is that the components and parts and everything on it need to be simple. It shouldn't be a bike that has all sorts of fancy components and parts on it and stuff, because if something ever does go wrong on them, they're probably going to be pretty expensive to get the parts to replace it. It may take some time to order whatever parts you need, but it's just got the basic kind of the bearings and kinds of axles and kind of brakes, disc brakes. Yeah, they might be nice, but I really like, for example, V brakes, because they're quite easy to tune, and they're so easy to find spare parts for them. In a lot of cases for replacing parts on my commuting bikes, I just use parts that I've salvaged off of old bikes that I was getting rid of. So if you're smart about it, you can almost maintain your bike for free just by using free parts from old bikes. So when I was choosing this bike, I was really hoping to find one that had an aluminum frame, because as I mentioned, I lock these bikes up outside all the time, so they're always exposed to the elements. And particularly in Canada, in the winter, we have a lot of salt that they put on the roads to melt the snow, but the salt really does quite a bit of damage to the bike. And this bike here has a steel frame, and you can really see that it's rusting away quite a lot of the frame. And with an aluminum frame, you're not going to see anything like that, because aluminum doesn't react the same way to corrosion. The other thing that I liked about this bike is that it had 700C wheels, so they're a bigger size of wheel than mountain bikes have, a little bit larger, and they're the same size of wheels that road bikes have. And as a result, it also means that your tire is a fair bit narrower than they are on a mountain bike. So as a result, it should create less resistance when riding this bike on the road than a mountain bike does. A bike like this one is pretty much like a mountain bike, except it has the larger size of wheels, and these bikes are known as hybrid bikes. So I'll just give my little overview now. And so there's the cassette. It's a 7-speed cassette, so it's a 21-speed bike. It is a little bit rusty. I believe this bike had been stored outside for a little while at least, but it still appears to be in pretty good shape. There's the derailleur there. Nothing fancy, just a Shimano tourney. So you can see it has vertical dropouts here, which is common for aluminum frame bikes. And this black piece here is called a derailleur hanger, and it bolts onto the frame, then your derailleur bolts onto it. And the idea behind that is if something ever happens to your derailleur, for example, it gets caught in your spokes or something and it gets ripped off, then what's going to happen is this derailleur hanger will get bent or broken. And the reason they do that is because it's much easier or cheaper to just replace this small piece here. Because if this was part of the frame, then your whole frame would no longer be able to have a derailleur on it anymore, and you would need to pretty much replace your bike. The chain isn't in the greatest shape either. It's kind of rusty too, but I'm not really too worried about it. I'll just put some lubricant on it, and it should be fine for me. So it has a 3-speed crank set, as you can see there. Three speeds at the front, 7 at the back, makes 21 speeds. And the front derailleur is just something simple, a Shimano, very basic front derailleur. Something that I noticed was this plastic ring here, which kind of is like a chain protector kind of thing. It has a crack here, and there's like actually a section missing from it. I've never really had too much faith in these. I didn't really think they did a whole lot. I don't really care too much about that. So I had kind of just been thinking about taking that thing right off. But then I realized what I can actually do is I can just take it off, and then I can rotate it like 90 degrees. So then this thing will be behind here, and it won't really matter there. But really, I'm not even sure it'll do a whole lot. This will probably crack off eventually, and then I'll just take it off anyway. So the bottom bracket that this bike has is just a very simple, square tapered, non-enclosed style of bottom bracket, which is actually what I prefer. The reason I prefer them for this kind of bike is because, over time, eventually it's probably going to get stuff inside there, and it's going to need cleaning out, and I can just easily do that rather than having to go and spend the money and buying a brand new bottom bracket to replace it. Or if just the bearings wear out over time, they could become looser, I can just tighten it back up again, set everything back to the way it was to start, and then it should be as good as new without having to spend any money. The bike came with a kickstand, but it's the style of kickstand that I really don't like, the kind that's mounted here in the middle. I prefer the kind that mounts to the back wheel. The reason is because if you have your bike sitting like this and then you want to move it and you're backpedaling it, and the crank gets wedged into the kickstand, and then to get it out you have to push the crank forward, and it's just a big pain. If you're just trying to back up your bike and move it somewhere. I also don't like this kind of kickstand as well because I don't feel that it's as stable as the kind that go back there. I just feel that it doesn't really stick quite as far away from the bike as the ones back there do, which means it's not leaning as far to one side, and it's more prone to getting knocked over by wind or just people bumping into it than the kind that go back there. So my plan is to get a kickstand like this one for that, and actually I'm thinking I might move this one over to there, and I've got an old kickstand which I can put on here, which should fit on here fine. The pedals are nothing fancy, just standard plastic ones. You can feel this one's a little bit loose, so I might want to take that one apart and fix it up. It came with one of these things, which is just a bracket for holding a lock on. I'm just going to end up taking that off because I don't have the lock which goes with it. This is what the tires look like that it came with, and they look like they're in pretty good shape. I don't think this bike has really been ridden too many kilometers. And it says on the tire that they can be pumped as high as 85 psi, so that should make for nice hard tires, which will be nice and fast on the road. The seller told me that he upgraded the saddle. It's a fairly wide saddle compared to what I'm used to. It's kind of more of a comfort saddle. I think I'll keep that on there anyways because it is made of a kind of material that's kind of rubbery. It's not going to absorb any water, hopefully. So that'll be good for leaving out in the rain and stuff. One thing that I don't like about it is that it came with one of these quick release things for adjusting the seat. Sure, it's nice and handy if you want to just move your seat up and down. However, if you're going to be locking this bike up somewhere, unless you're going to want to take your seat with you, there's always the fear that someone's going to just walk off with your seat. The bike also has a quick release on the front axle, which is the same thing. If someone really wanted to steal my front wheel, that it would be really easy to do. So when I get the time, I'll probably replace this axle with a non-quick release one, just so I can have a little bit more peace of mind when I lock up my bike. And I really never found that the front quick release was really save that much time. Just to grab a wrench only takes a few seconds. The type of brakes that this bike came with are just some regular standard V brakes. V brakes are my favorite kind of brakes for commuting bikes, because they're really simple and easy to tune and easy to adjust the way that you want them. I posted a video a little while ago showing how to tune up V brakes if you haven't seen it yet. This bike actually has a small little front suspension on it, a few little centimeters of travel. I didn't actually care either way if this bike had one or not, but I'll be fine with this one. As you can see, my other bike never had a front suspension on it. So now looking at the handlebars, it has some of these rapid fire types of shifters, which are combined with the brake levers. When I first saw that this bike had them, I was immediately thinking I'd just take that off, because I was worried. I get worried about stuff like this in the winter, because if water gets inside of there, then it's just going to freeze up and then nothing's going to work. I've always been really happy with just the simple kind of shifters that this bike had, which is basically just a paddle and then like a friction joint in there, and then it pulls the cable. It's very simple. It works pretty easy. If you have any kind of like water that freezes inside of here, all you just got to do is just sort of move it once, and then all the ice in there just kind of gets broken up, and it's no longer a problem. However, I never really have given these a proper chance in the winter, so I think I'll just keep them on there until I have a problem. The bike also came with a bell, but I'm going to take this one off and put a different one on because it's kind of worn out. You can hear it kind of rattles a little bit. It's like a little bit loose in there. That's really annoying when you're riding, because there's a constant vibration of this thing going back and forth, and it really does get annoying, and it really doesn't even work that well. This part here is kind of rusted and doesn't really spring as hard as it used to. The type of stem this bike has is one of these neat ones, which has different positions which you can set it at. I've never used it before, but I imagine you just have to loosen off this Allen key here, and then you can fold your handlebars down to different positions. Right now they're set, and they're it's just about as high up as they go, which is a more comfortable riding position. But I think I want to have them quite a bit lower, because when you're lower, it means that there's less frontal area, less wind is hitting you, and you're able to ride with less resistance from the wind. So there's really not a whole lot I need to do to this bike to make it ready for the road the way that I use this one. I already have like a milk crate and rack from my old black bike, which I'm just going to put right on here, and it should bolt on easily because it's got these little eyelet hole things here on the side, which are designed specifically for putting racks on. So it just bolts on here, and then there's bolt-on points down here as well, which it just goes right onto. I would also like to put fenders on this bike, because I will be riding it in the rain, and fenders really help you stay dry and clean when you're riding when the roads aren't so dry. I actually do have an extra set of fenders like these ones, but I'm kind of worried that they're not going to fit on the larger wheel size, so I may hold off for a little while for putting fenders on. There really isn't a whole lot that I need to do to this bike. It came in pretty good shape. I do kind of want to replace maybe some of the cables on it, like some of the brake cables, just because it was exposed up here and they're a little bit rusty, and I've never made a video showing how to replace a shifter cable or a brake cable, and I feel like this would be a good opportunity to do one. Another thing that I want to add to this bike is a mirror, so I can see what's coming up behind me, just like that one has on it. And I'm also going to add lights to the front and for the back, so I can ride it any time of the day. And I'll add a water bottle cage on here so I can have water when I'm riding. Anyway, that concludes my overview of my new bike. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting. Thanks for watching.